Pastors here with Circles, and today we are continuing our strange survey through the strange stories in our Bibles. Now, today we're going to talk about a story I have never once heard preached. So I'm really excited to tackle it, and I hope I do it justice. So let's try to tackle this one together. We're going to keep moving backwards in time. We saw Jesus fight an army of demons. We saw Ezekiel envision an army of skeletons. Now we're going to look at a man with no army. Now we're going to look at a man who's alone. He has no support, no friends. After an era of judges, Israel demanded that God appoint a king. So the people protested and resisted to the prophet Samuel. And the prophet Samuel was like, yo, this is not a good idea. But they kept on probing and prodding. So Samuel said, fine, do it, whatever. And they elected a king named Saul to be their ruler. The people were elated. Finally, Israel was going to experience peace, prosperity, victory. That was the dream. That's what was going to happen, right? Wrong. Not remotely. Saul's reign was marked with failure on a catastrophic scale. So God made it known that his reign was coming to a very swift end. Saul's reputation was terrible, and it was terrible worldwide. And it made Israel a target for enemy attack. Like a lion prowling after a wounded zebra, the Philistines were circling with fury and fire in their eyes, ready to pounce on Israel. God's people were about to go to war. God's people were about to fight, and Saul had no clue what to do. So in trying times, Saul usually went to his prophet Samuel. Samuel talked to God directly. Samuel had a direct line of communication to the God of the universe. He needed Samuel. He needed his head prophet. He needed his right-hand man of God for guidance. There was one problem at this era of Israel's history. Samuel was dead. He didn't have anyone to turn to. Saul was alone. So what was he going to do? Saul did what anyone would do. Well, Saul did what any crazy person would do. Saul sought out someone who claimed that they could speak to the dead in an attempt to talk to Samuel one last time to get some advice. So that's the story we're about to read. Let's dig into it together, shall we? It takes place in 1 Samuel 28. When Saul saw the Philistine army, he was afraid. Terror filled his heart. He inquired of the Lord, but the Lord did not answer him by dreams or Urim or prophets. Saul then said to his attendants, find me a woman who is a medium, so I may go and inquire of her. Then the woman asked, whom shall I bring up for you? Bring up Samuel, he said. When the woman saw Samuel, she cried at the top of her voice and said to Saul, why have you deceived me? You are Saul. The king said to her, don't be afraid. What do you see? The woman said, I see a ghostly figure coming up out of the earth. What does he look like? He asked. An old man wearing a robe is coming up, she said. Samuel said, why do you consult me now that the Lord has departed from you and become your enemy? The Lord has done what he predicted through me. The Lord has torn the kingdom out of your hands and given it to your neighbors, to David. Because you did not obey the Lord or carry out his fierce wrath against the Amalekites, the Lord has done this to you today. The Lord will deliver both Israel and you into the hands of the Philistines, and tomorrow you and your sons will be with me. Holy moly. I don't even know where to begin. This a crazy story. It's a strange part of Saul's downfall, and it begins bizarrely. He went where? He went to see whom? He sought out what? He did what? I don't know about you, but this passage really perplexes me. The strange story of King Saul meeting up with a medium begs three questions that we're going to answer here. First is this. Why was the medium so frustrated when she discovered that Saul was standing there? Wouldn't most people be ecstatic to serve a king she can charge a little bit extra? Like, wouldn't that be exciting? Well, not for her, and for a good reason. Saul was her sworn enemy. As the ruler, he had every psychic and medium driven out of Israel, and he had some of them executed. Why? Because God had strictly forbidden the practice. God said you can't do this. Fortune telling and witchcraft was illegal under God's law. And with that in mind, Saul's decision just got so much crazier. He sought God's guidance with a prophet using a process that God had forbidden. How ridiculous is this decision? And by making this dark decision, Saul disobeyed God and his own decrees. That's why she was so frustrated. The second question this prompts is, was this actually a ghost encounter? Did she actually do this? Probably not. The experience certainly filled Saul with the same fear that you'd have from seeing a ghost. And candidly, it's startling to me too. At first glance, it does seem like the medium orchestrated the real visitation from the dead. Now, we have no idea what actually happened, though. Perhaps it was like a mere vision, like what Ezekiel saw, where God just sent a vision to him. Or maybe it was even a visit from a dead person's soul, which does happen in the Bible. It happened in the Mount of Transfiguration. Whatever did transpire, Saul was certainly spooked, but I do not think it was a ghost encounter, nor do I think it was a successful psychic. I think it was God interjecting in this absolute craziness. And number 3, did Samuel's prophecy come true? Yeah, it did. Saul was so shaken with fear after this encounter that he passed out on the floor. And once he regained his composure, he returned home, and the next morning he woke up to lead his army into battle with the Philistines. Just as predicted, he and his sons were both killed the next day. We can read about that in chapter 31. Unreal. Came true. And this is the part of the Bible study where we start applying the story to our lives, and it's kind of tricky. How do we do this? Now, Saul's experience is very strange, but there's a ton of applicational messages in here within this mystery. So let's discuss 2 lessons that we can all learn from this story. The first is this: things get dark when we try to solve our own problems. Saul triggered a war, then he struggled to solve his own problem. So what did he do? In direct disobedience to the God he served, he sought out a medium in the middle of the wilderness. And then you saw what happened next. Shivering in his flip-flops, Saul came face to face with an encounter with a dead man and fainted. And ultimately, Samuel gave him that miserable message that God was not going to help him anymore. While we all can easily scoff at the foolishness of all of this, we can fall into the same trap if we're not careful. In times of desperation, we are tempted to take things into our own hands instead of obeying God. Maybe you're tired of waiting on a relationship, so you throw yourself into one that's not right for you, that you're not ready for, before you're actually waiting on God's timing. That's Saul-like behavior. Maybe you're sick of this unhealthy parade of difficult thoughts that you're having, so you develop an unhealthy coping mechanism to deal with them. Next thing you know, you're numbing your feelings instead of actually working through them and processing them with God. That is Saul-like behavior. Maybe you want to see justice served to that person that hurt you, but you are sick of waiting for it. So instead of letting vengeance and justice stay in God's court like you should, you take matters into your own hands. You start spreading rumors. You start trying to get back at them. And you're trying to ruin this person's life. That is Saul-like behavior. While none of these are as dramatic and dark as seeing a medium in the desert, and I totally get that, they're still dangerous. They're still problematic. Now, fortunately for us, thanks to the perfect King Jesus, God's assistance is persistent for me and you. Embrace that. Quit trying to do things on your own. Quit trying to solve your own problems. You don't have to. Your resolve can get you far, but God can get you further. Your skills will help, but God's power is far greater. Self-help books can teach you and instruct you, but God can transform you. Whenever a problem sits before you, refuse to solve it on your own. Follow God's lead, discern his word, obey him, go towards his will, and you're gonna go far. You're gonna succeed. And if you resist, things are gonna get dark. They might even get more frightening than a phantom prophet. You may deal with some of life's authentic nightmares, regret, guilt, sorrow, and shame. But don't take the enemy's bait. Don't fall for it. Jesus came to set you free from all of that. And since God is here to liberate you, lean on him. He will set you free from having to take matters into your own hands, and he will take care of things for you. Do not try to solve things on your own, because I warn you, just like with Saul, things can get dark. But then I have a word of encouragement for you, because a lot of us have failed. A lot of us have done this. So there is some encouragement here. Point number 2 is this: God can use anything, even evil, to achieve his purpose. There is no question that what Saul did was evil. It was wicked. It goes without saying, but I'm going to say it. Believers have no place practicing witchcraft. It's not a good thing. Saul was supposed to lead God's chosen people, and he couldn't even follow God's precepts. He couldn't even obey God's ways. And regardless of all of that, God still delivered one final message to Saul. Now, it was horrific for Saul. It was bad, you bet. It was hopeful for Israel, though. In Saul's absence, King David would usher in a new era that was marked with devotion and worship and God's favor. David wrote the Psalms. David stepped up and said, "We are going to worship the Lord." And then, even referring to David, Saul's own son named Jonathan said this: "The Lord is a witness between you and me, and between your descendants and my descendants forever." David brought God's presence back into the palace, which then initiated a covenant, a promise between God and King David, that a perfect king will rise up from David's line, and his name is Jesus. And Jonathan saw that. Saul's own son saw that. and declared that over David's life. It's really cool. So we've all heard it. God works in mysterious ways. And of all those mysteries, one is most mesmerizing to me. Throughout the Bible and throughout our lives, God actually uses evil things to accomplish his mission. It's really fascinating. Joseph, he was sold into slavery, but God then promoted him to prime minister. Daniel was thrown into a pit of lions, but God proved himself powerful, and then Daniel rose the ranks. Egypt was charging after Israel. Then God parted the Red Sea and they walked through on dry land. Jesus was murdered, but he defeated death to save the very people who killed him. God can use anything, even evil, to achieve great things. Now, God does not create evil. God does not cultivate evil, but God does take control of evil. He is not the architect of it, but he can leverage it. God can leverage sinful situations for his intention. So when people try to harm you, know that God will help you. When situations try to barricade you, know that God will make a way. God takes evil incidents and gives them eternal significance. So as we've explored the Bible's strange stories, we've seen so many spiritual lessons, but every strange story points us in the same direction, to a sovereign Savior. And there is no need to fear because God is near. And yes, things might have gotten dark. And yes, things might have gotten scary. But there's no need to fear because God is near. So if what you've faced recently feels evil or difficult, know that God can bring good out of it. Know that God can make something great come out of this situation. Because God can use anything to achieve great things, including evil. And that is a powerful truth of Scripture and a powerful truth in your life.